We announced it. TBDex 1.0 SDK is now out.
TBDex is an open protocol that makes moving value around the world much more efficient and streamlined. We're solving this problem with TBDex by building a standard open source protocol that anyone can use for free and plug into.
We're super excited to have developers be able to start looking at this technology and start implementing it. We've put together a new financial protocol that we believe can fundamentally revolutionize the way that we think about transmitting value around the world.
Hey everybody, welcome. Well, welcome back to our Friday streams. Today we actually have a special guest, a community member that's going to join us. I'm going to bring him on stage. Hey Facundo, can you introduce yourself? Let everybody know your name, your job if you want, just a quick little intro.
Yes, hello. Thank you for having me here. I am Facunda La Rocca, also The Rock, which is not The Rock, the actor, but it's a rock in Italian. I am located in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I'm a software developer. Today, I am playing as the architect of the project I work on, and I am focusing on identity specifically, and that's why this topic that I'm going to be talking about today is so interesting to me.
Nice, welcome. We're super excited to have you. Yeah, these live streams are essentially to amplify voices in the soft SSI space, so identity and everything you said. So I'm happy you're here. Audience, where is everybody tuning in from? I'm in Boston, and I know there's a little bit of a delay, so I'm going to give people some time to say where they're tuning in from. Also, I had a question that I wanted to ask. Okay, so we know that VCs are essentially claims. So I'm curious, what's a strange hobby or skill of yours that you would want a VC for? So you could tell everyone, like, I'm certified in X, and the weirder, the better. I'm gonna let you go first, Kundo. And audience, let us know as well. What's a skill you wish you had a VC for that you can announce to the world?
Yes, as a teenager, I used to be extremely good at Mortal Kombat Ultimate from Sega Genesis, if you remember, back in, I think, 20 years ago.
Is this the video game?
It's a video game. It's Sega Genesis used to be the competitor of Super Nintendo. Mm-hmm. It's a 16-bit video game console, and I used to be very good at that. So I would like to be certified that I was so good at that moment, and still prove that I was good today. So that would be a very fun usage of a credential for that.
I like that. Okay, it's funny because I have the question, but I don't have an answer. Okay, let me think. What would I want a skill for? Maybe I would want my skill to be I can find the best books, which is probably a lame skill, but it's a make or break it. When somebody's not a reader, if they're not starting with a really good book, it can make or break the whole experience. So that would be my skill. And audience, I would love to know what your skills would be. Feel free to add them in the chat as I continue on. Yeah, right? Wouldn't that be so nice? Okay. All right, guys. So as you see, we have our agenda. We did our intros. We're going to do some SSI and OIDC questions. We're going to get into what OIDC is. We're going to do a demo and then some Q&A time. So any questions you have, feel free to add them in the chat. So I would love to know, Facundo, like, how did you hear about TBD and the community that we have in Discord?
Oh, a great question. So how I hear was from a colleague at work. So we were just researching about specifically how to start using DIPs, and I came up with Ion. And a colleague of mine mentioned, "Hey, why don't you follow?" I think one of the co-founders was Daniel, I believe, and I started following him. And I ended up in the community. I joined Discord and I started seeing a lot of good stuff there that I was very interested in, and I ended up just getting hands-on on the framework and SDKs.
I love how organic that was. And I feel like that's like a true testament to like a nice, growing, healthy community when it's just like an organic recommendation like that. So we're happy that you're here, and we're really happy that you're here on live with us as well. Before we get into like any demos or anything like that, I would like, in a really like simple answer, what is OIDC? What does it stand for, and what is it? And make it as like basic as possible.
Yes, there we go. Let me try. So OIDC stands for OpenID Connect, which is a protocol built on top of OAuth 2 to provide secure and safe authentication and authorizations, mainly for authentication, I believe. But it's a common language that we can use across different applications to exchange information about credentials and who the user is, basically. And because it is a standard, we can have like a common language that we all understand, independently of any framework that you are using, applications, libraries, etc.
Thank you. That was perfect. So essentially, it's like aiding in like interoperability and accessibility to like that space. So that's perfect. And that's what we're going to get into, because you built a server around that. So a little sneak peek for you guys. So I was curious, like, can you give us a real world example or scenario where integrating VCs with OpenID Connect, like you just mentioned, would be beneficial?
Yes, I can think, I can tackle this in two different aspects, right? One of them is why OIDC. And the interesting part there is that if we are interested in verifiable credentials, right, and we need to build all the stuff by ourselves, then not only there is a lot of work, but it's security involved. That's risky, right? And it's difficult to implement. So we do have OIDC that tackles all those concerns. So if we can put verifiable credentials on top of it, then it's easier for us as implementers, right, to at least build on something that we are familiarized with, which is simple. It's not for free because you still need to add some parts, but at least the protocol protects you from doing stuff that you shouldn't. Right? So you have a baseline to where you can start building securely and with some rules. That's very important.
Nice. I like that. Thank you. And that was like a really good response. Thank you so much. And like the way you're talking about implementers and making it easy, during our conversations, you mentioned that you want to basically target implementers and developers and how that part is crucial for mass adoption of verifiable credentials. Can you elaborate a little bit more, which you kind of already did, but you can elaborate a little bit more on why you think this approach is more beneficial than like targeting end users? Like, why do you think we should start with the developers?
Yes, I'm gonna use myself as an example, and then my wife. And my wife, because she's a regular user, the most common user that you can find.
Perfect.
On my case, for example, on GitHub, I used to use my password, and I kept using it until I was forced to use passkeys. For example, GitHub, if you're aware, a time ago, they removed password completely, and now you're forced to use passkeys or something stronger than just password.
Okay, I didn't know.
So even working in the space, authentication, until I was forced to do that, I didn't care, because in reality, I just wanted to use GitHub.
I just want to log in.
Exactly, that's what I want. I don't care. That's, as a user, that's just a side effect that I must go through, but it's not what I am looking for. And the same happens with most common users, like my wife. When she's logging into Facebook or her home banking, she wants to perform an action. So authentication is something she's forced to do, right? So we all understand that nowadays not authenticating is a problem.
Mhm.
But most of the users, if you can take that away completely, they don't care.
Yeah.
And this is why I believe if we are trying to target end users, it's going to be difficult, because why would a user want to use a verifiable credential, right? But if we target implementers or architects or companies, they are willing to protect user information because they are liable for that data. And that's different. It's much simpler if we start seeing, let's say, Auth0. Sorry, I'm not sure if I can mention specific companies, but you can have IAM system or service providers implementing it and then offering it as part of the service. Is much simpler to have clients of those companies or developers or implementers offering that as an option. And then I can go ahead and use it because it's there. It's simpler.
Think about it.
So for me, targeting implementers, architects, and companies is like it's a short path for massive adoption of verifiable credentials.
I love that. That was a beautiful answer. And I think it could resonate with the audience and as well myself. And also we have a comment that it resonates with. Two screens, can't find my little mouse. Okay. But no, yeah, even for me, like I know that, so before I started working at TBD, I never even thought about any of that stuff. Like you said, I just want to log in. I don't care about any of that. Like, obviously I don't want like my password leaked. Like I don't want any security breaches like that, but I don't want to think about it. I just want it to be like built in, baked in, like you said. Like, I don't want to have to think too much. And sadly, I do have the same password for maybe like 4 accounts, which is so bad. But I do. I need to do better with that. But no, that was like a really, really great answer. And like, audience, if it resonates with you, like put a little me too in the comments. That was great. Actually, like it went into like the other question that I wanted to ask you. So I guess my last question before I do like a little commercial break, I want to know, which you had kind of answered, but how does your project fit into the broader SSI ecosystem? And are there any like projects or standards it interoperates with before you like
yes.
demo?
Yes. So when I started the project, my first concern was, okay, if I can put this to work easily into OIDC, then it's going to be even difficult to sell to my whole company, right? How can I turn to my company and say, let's implement this, this is awesome, if we can adhere to a specific standard? So that was the first thing that I started looking at. And because I could do that relatively simply, because I already had knowledge about OIDC, how that worked, the kind of things that I would expect, it was super simple. So my target was that it's just build something that is the bare minimum stuff that you need to build if you are willing to start using OIDC with verifiable credentials, so that it's simpler for the community to get a sense, okay, not the deep details of the protocol, it can be difficult, but at least, okay, which endpoints do you need to implement? So what are the responses or the standards that you want to use? And back to the other question, I don't think that I'm using anything else other than OIDC and the flows that you must implement, and some standards for signing tokens and VPs, some cryptography, but it's standard libraries, nothing specific.
Nice, thank you. I know everyone's probably super anxious for the demo now, but before that, we're gonna do like a little commercial break from our sponsors. I'm kidding, it's not sponsors. It's just a video of me. So I'm gonna remove us from Did you know that verifiable credentials expire?
What?
Now, not all, but some. Let's say you complete this course, you get a verifiable credential as a certificate. However, you need to recertify every 2 years. That's a VC that would contain an expiration date property. Now, that's easy enough to think, but let's look at the code and see what is it and how do we do it for ourselves. Ooh, the fun part, it's code time. This code block will create a VC for us, but let's just focus on the expiration date for today. That property has a value that's a string that needs to be in ISO 8601 format. That includes the time and time zone. Once we execute this code, you'll now have a credential that expires on September 30th, 2026 at 12:34 p.m. So yes, VCs can expire. Don't shoot the messenger. See you next time. Bye. Hey, we're back. I hope you guys liked the little commercial. I'm trying to make it like a little fun vibe here. And I know we're going to talk about verifiable credentials. So hopefully you guys learned something too. And it was like, they expire what, But let's get into the demo. I'm going to let you take it away. I'm going to share your screen now. So if you want to like move the stream over so we don't get that echo effect.
There we go.
All right, perfect. Adding you on now.
Awesome.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so details for you and the audience. I am using a monitor, single monitor, so I don't see the chat at this point. You will have to stop me. So this is the cool stuff. I'm going to be presenting two things. That's why I'm sharing my whole screen. On the right, what you see is a standard application that I have on my mobile phone that I'm sharing. This is called Ethereum Wallet. And a fun fact is that part of this framework that this company is building is used in Web5 SDK. So that's a fun fact. And the reason I'm using this wallet is because it's implementing the standard. So it's not mine. There is nothing about this application that I can modify to make it work. Why is this important? Because we talked about interoperability. And this is what the protocol gives us, is the fact that if I follow a specific language, which is called OIDC, then I can have any application communicating with my server, right? And that's the nice part of this. On the left, what I built is OpenID Connect server that we implement verifiable credentials. So it will behave as a standard OpenID Connect provider, plus all the things that you will need to share credentials, login using credentials, also SIOP, which is not 100% in the scope of verifiable credentials, but it's kind of in that direction.
Facundo, I'm going to stop you really quickly. Do you mind pulling the wallet down a little bit on the screen? We have a little request. You could just slide it down a little bit. It seems cut off. Let's see how it looks on this screen. Okay, perfect.
Awesome. There we go. Okay. Small disclaimer. Even though the server that I'm implementing works as if were an OIDC Connect provider, it's not validating input, anything. I'm just skipping stuff, right? But it still works as it were validating things. So don't use it in production. That's a disclaimer. Usually, so let's talk about a little bit the bare minimal stuff that the protocol provides. This is any application, usually called relying party, but it's a web application that anyone would use. Usually you click on login and you will be redirected to what's usually called the entry point, authorized endpoint. This is probably the one that you don't see this, but it's happening when you log in with Google, for example. At this point is where the server validates, for example, the client ID, redirect URI, which is where the authorization code will be delivered once the flow's completed, and probably scope, some more stuff. Usually this happens real fast, and immediately the server redirects you back to sign in, but that's an implementation detail. So I'm gonna click on the first use case, which is I am an authority or issuer, right? So you are signing up or signing in, doesn't matter, but you don't have yet a credential. So I want to issue a credential to you. So this is a very good use case. Usually you will complete like a sign up flow. You will ask the user to verify their email, either by sending a redirect link or a TOTP or any mechanism. And this is where the first use case is a perfect fit. If you have validated the email, you could issue a verifiable credential that email is verified. And eventually, other parties, if they trust you as the authority, can reuse that credential to avoid having the user going through the same flow again, which is painful for this. It's not the best user experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, when you sign up, you will have to send you need to communicate with the user some form so that the user can start the flow. And this is part of the protocol. It depends on the scenario that you are using. There are mainly two. It is cross-device scenario or same device.
Same device.
Same device is when you are using your mobile phone. In those cases, you can have a deep link like this. The link will look like this. This is for demo purposes only. Okay, usually you will put a link. But if you are in a cross-device scenario like this one, where I am in a web application, but my mobile or the application that I'm going to use is in a different mobile, usually you will use a QR.
Okay.
A QR code. There is one consideration, though, about QRs that we must take into account. There is a limit in the number of bytes that you can put into a QR. So usually, when the link or the information that you want to share is, I think, is above 1024 kilobytes, then you need to tweak a little bit the link. But in essence, it's the same. So let's go with the fun part. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scan that QR code with my, do you guys see my my mobile phone? There we go. A lot of things are happening here. Oh, it got me an error. So let's go one more time. Oh, give me 1 second.
Take your time. This is like the best part of live streams when we get technical difficulties. Just makes it more interesting. So don't worry about it at all.
No, this is one of the inconveniences that I had to face, is that the application was updated a few weeks ago, and they introduced a restriction, which is that your application must be running over HTTPS in order to work. And that makes development very difficult.
Oh, no.
Because your device must be able to discover the certificate.
You found a workaround, though?
Yes, usually I created like AWS EC2 instance. I put everything running, and I had to run it manually.
So much work. Okay, let's see how this goes. Take
yes.
2.
There we go. So let's reopen. There we go. One more time. Fill up the form. And give it another try. Unique oh, I see. Let's remove it. There we go. The problem is that when you scan for the first time the QR code, the application will register the issuer as a trusted party. And the problem is that I had it installed already, and because I've been doing some tweaks for the demo, it was failing. That's probably a bug on the end. So just a couple of things are happening. The application detected the issuer automatically, right? And that's part of the protocol. I had to implement a specific endpoint so that the application can do that. Oh.
No. Why is it doing this to us?
No.
Let's see.
Let's see.
Oh, man.
No, it was working a few minutes ago.
No, I hate that.
There we go. That was a transient issue. So, and this is a flow. I'm issuing a credential, right? Which is email has been verified. Now, fun fact is that you don't need to check if you see the data here. It's only email is enough, because the fact that you have the credential means that you have proved your email is valid. So I don't need to have what you usually find in access tokens, like email verified, true. Well, I don't need that just because I have the credentials. So I'm going to add it. There we go. A second use case that is useful is if your company has a specific KYC requirement, like asking for your IDs or something that proves your nationality or passport, whatever, you can also issue a KYC complete, right? Where you probably validate PII, whatever it takes, that depends on the country, right? And same flow. The application, and pay attention to this, the application is also downloading specific information for the credential, like the background. You see the logo, there is a logo here. There are some, for example, colors on the fonts, on the background. All that stuff is being read from specific endpoints that the issuer is exposing. And that's all. And now I have my two credentials. And the application, the ID was able to do all that stuff automatically, securely, because we are using cryptography here, even though this server that I am implemented is very minimal server, right? It's not like a well-known authority, if that makes sense. So go back to any questions so far?
Yes. Okay, let's see. I have one question, and this was kind of while you were doing your debugging and stuff. And they want us to know, what exactly are you hosting on AWS? Okay.
Do you want to see that now or at the end?
Let's do it at the end. Continue on what you have, and then we'll run through like all the questions at the end.
Awesome, cool. Now let's go to the second flow, which is, okay, now I do have my credential. How do I use it as a user? As an authority, how do you ask user for a verifiable credential in the login flow? So let's give it a try. Usually you will see different forms, login with Google, social networks, GitHub, or if you still support email and password, you can do that. But an alternative will be, okay, ask for a verifiable credential. Not only for login, but it can also be used for specific use case where you need to, for example, to extend the authorization level. It can be for login, but let's say that you want to do a transfer in your home banking, but the transfer is above certain threshold that involves a specific authorization. That's also a very good use case. It's not necessarily authentication, but I can ask you to present a verifiable credential that you can do what you're trying to do, for example. You can set up restrictions on what specific aspects of a credential you are looking for, not only the issuer, but also which information must be present in the credential. I'm going to use nothing at all. Email is going to be valid. And this is an authentication process. I'm going to scan the QR code. And now, if you pay attention, the application is already presenting me only the ones that satisfy the presentation definition that the issuer requested. So I'm going to select this one. I'm going to share it. Of course, there is like biometric proof. And done. From the application side, I'm done. Then your server will get the credential, extract the claims. We can see in a minute how that happens. Complete the flow and go to the final step, which is an access token or an ID token is issued, and then the flow continues regularly. What's important about this part? The entry point and the final point. This is a standard. So what happened in between is up to the implementation, to the authority in this case. Which flows I wanted to use, which credentials I am enforcing to use, social logins, doesn't matter. But the entry point is a standard and the final flow is a standard. So as an issuer, my client, which is a relying party, keeps doing the same it was doing. It doesn't matter which mechanism I am offering to my users. Questions, concerns?
Unmute. This was really, 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 really great. Thank you, Facundo. You're so good at explaining things. So I'm not going to be surprised if we don't have too many questions, because like your explanations were flawless and it was super easy to understand. But we do have some questions. So I'm going to get into them. Let's start with this one. What other technologies did you use to build this? I think you might have.
Nice. That's a very good question. For this example, I'm using Next.js, and other than Web5 SDK for creating all the stuff related to verifiable credentials, some cryptography libraries. I think I'm using JSON Web Token and probably no shows, but nothing else, nothing specific. And this is also an important point. I built a demo. There is a repo that I pushed in GitHub, and it's a plain JavaScript. I didn't add anything, not even good coding practices, just for the sake of simplicity. So you can see what must be done on each endpoint, right? So there is nothing fancy there. You can go see the repo, look at the endpoints, and you will see the response right there. I call the plain JSON. So I did use anything.
Nice. I love that. And actually, this question's already answered with what you said. So the link is at the bottom if anybody wants to like check it out, like you said. And I love that you've made it super accessible and easy for people to like check it out and know what's going on. So this token at the end, does that become a verifiable credential?
It could be, but it is not. This is, let's take a look at this. This is a regular ID token.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. So this is a plain ID token, pretty similar to what you will see if you were using Google as your provider. There's nothing fancy.
Nothing crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. We have another question. Show this one. Curious about your decision to use the Sperion wallet. Did you try out any others?
Oh, yes, that was pretty challenging, actually.
Oh, yeah.
This one is the only one that I could find that's really implementing the standard. There are others out there, like, can I see the name of the wallet?
No, they're just asking, like, did you use any other wallets?
Yes, I tried. The problem is they don't implement, either they implement their own or the standard is not yet fully implemented. And then as an authority builder, you don't know what to implement because some of them are not open source, so you can go and see the code. So you don't know how to build that. Usually the way they work today, the ones that I tried, they offer their own set of APIs. So it's like when you want to use that wallet, you must build the whole pack. Is you use the wallet, you offer that wallet to your users, but also you build on top of their services. And that's why I ended up with Ethereum. They really implement the standard and they are open source. That allow me to go ahead, check the code, see why something is failing, and eventually fix it. Did I answer?
Yeah, no, you did. You did. Thank you.
Something also interesting is that this part of the standard, which is OIDC for verifiable credentials, is having a lot of work. So it's changing constantly. Today it's not in a ready-to-use state; it's in draft, and this is also challenging because Ethereum wallet can't just keep up with all the changes all the time. So you need to go through their documentation, see at which draft they are in, and then try to replicate that implementation, because just a few details in the draft make the protocol behave different.
And then you have to
So that was challenging. Yes.
Nice. And I like that. So speaking of the fact that it's in draft and stuff like that, I guess my next question that I wanted to ask you is, how do you feel like how important is community involvement in developing and improving these SSI solutions like what you're working on? How important do you feel that is?
Oh, I think that's probably the key part of this, because as I was saying, all these standards in draft. That means that in this case, Ethereum team can keep up with all the changes. So having community supporting that helps also build the frameworks. As I mentioned before, part of the Ethereum SDK is being used on Web5 SDK. It's the presentation exchange library. And that's thanks to the community.
Yeah.
Also, part of the questions that I had when I started trying to do this integration, the answers to those questions came from the community. And I also provided answer to other members that were asking questions. And that was very useful because the Ethereum team was always very kind, but they are full. So they are overwhelmed and they couldn't answer quickly. And that's a little bit frustrating for the developer having to wait like 2 weeks for a response. And community support was crucial for me to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I love that. And I love how active you are in our community as well, because you're right. It's necessary. And that's what I love about open source. I love how like it's literally just like people from all over different jobs, it doesn't matter, but they're all working towards towards the same goal. And I love how it's like collaboration and stuff. Thank you so much. You literally pretty much answered all of my questions. I was gonna ask you like security stuff, but you threw that in, which I love. Let me see.
So one aspect that we can, if there is a minute, is a little bit into all the request calls that the application does when a QR code is scanned. So I can show you the logs. That's a fun part that we can see.
Yeah, let's see it. Show it.
Okay, so let's go. Sorry.
No, you're good. This is great.
Login with Besses. And now let's try. There we go. Many interesting stuff will happen under the hood. So I'm gonna, oh, sorry. I just scanned the QR code. So look at the stuff on this side. I'm gonna explain in a minute what that is.
Are you able to zoom in a little bit?
Let's give it a try. There we go.
That's good.
So accept, share. There we go. So let's start with something curious. I didn't do that, but there are calls to standard endpoints that are part of the OIDC definition, such as the OpenID Connect configuration. So when I scan the QR code, what the issuer returns back is a BP token that contains one of the fields is the issuer. Then the application, because of the standard, knows how to read information about the issuer. So it makes a request to this endpoint. This endpoint will return what is called the short endpoint, or SHAW key endpoint, which is this one. And from here, the application can get the signing keys, the public component of the signing keys that are being used to sign. ID tokens, access tokens, BP tokens, all that stuff is happening because of the standard. So all those endpoints are metadata endpoints, but are strictly necessary in order to have this working. But otherwise, the application wouldn't be able to verify that the BP token that you are, as the authority, are issuing is valid. Then the application is also requesting data. So all this stuff happens from the application, not from the website. Some part of these are part of the standard. Other ones are specific that you can implement the endpoint as you want, but the response must be a standard. It's part of the implementation.
Yeah, no, this is great. And I was really excited to like have you on here to amplify this more, because when I was working on our known customer credentials, which utilizes a lot of this stuff, and our SIOP v2 requests and stuff, it was super like hard to comprehend at first, because there's so many different moving parts. And as you said, like there's all these different endpoints and some that have to be according to the standard. It has to be super specific. So it was really nice. I think we were both learning at the same time in Discord. I remember helping with one of your questions and I'm like, this was made for me. I've been head deep in the specs for like weeks on this. So I love that. We do have a question. Let's see, it's a lengthy one. I'm trying to understand what he joined a little late, so you may have already kind of answered this. I'm trying to understand what this does. It looks like you can log in with a VC. The README also says it can issue a VC. I'm curious if you can present multiple VCs to get a new VC.
Yes, absolutely. Let's recap a little bit. In this, I didn't build that, but that's doable. You can add many restrictions to, or not restrictions, they are requirements. So you can specify a type of credential, claims that you're looking for into the credential, and then you can also specify whether you accept one or n credentials, and then the application takes care of that. What you get, and I'm gonna go to the repo, and let's see.
Zoom in just a little bit, please, just so everybody can see. Perfect.
There we go.
Perfect.
You're gonna get I don't think I have it here. What you're gonna get is a BP token that is coming from the application that has an array of credentials. And then that's your part as the implementer, scanning through all of them. All of them are going to be valid, but eventually you can match it against the verifier presentation that you created and validated. Once you know it's valid, then you need to scan through all the credentials. It's an array, and look for the claims that you're looking for, either type or PII, email, whatever. So yes, the answer, you can request one or many, and the application will take care of providing all the ones that completed the presentation definition that was requested.
Thank you. Good question, Ian, and great response, per usual. So this kind of leads into my next one. What are to-dos? Like, what's your to-do list when it comes to the server? Are there other things you want to implement in there? Were you thinking about implementing that multiple credentials feature? Like
Yes.
what's on the docket?
Yes, I had two in my head. One of them is trying to integrate this demo server within some service provider. Let's say, just to name one, Cognito. Because if I can do that, then that means that the API of the protocol is working perfectly fine. And if this server can interact with any other OIDC provider, then all the rules are being followed. And the second one that I was looking into is the thing that we were talking about, is asking for many credentials and eventually different types. So that's my next step.
I actually have a question a little bit from like the presentation. I remember I just popped in my head again. So you showed how there was like a KYC credential, correct? And
Yes.
I'm curious. So the person comes with their KYC credential. What's like the compliance there? If you know it, like that the person would actually accept that credential or trust that KYC credential, because wouldn't they want to do their own kind of auditing for that PII information?
Yes, that's partially true, but I used to work for a company that had to do KYC requirements for compliance, and the reason that company, I am not sure if all companies do that, had to do KYC is because there is no single centralized authority that you can trust, because at the end of the day, the company is liable for that, right? So the company can argue, oh, well, this authority lied to me. No, that's not an option. But if we can prove and we can agree in the whole community and ecosystem that we can prove that credential is valid, for example, from the government, and you have a credential that represents your passport, then that's different, because we have a central authority that issued the credential. We know because we can use cryptography to prove that. So that changes a little bit the landscape of why we use KYC. A very interesting use case for KYC is for those who offer like a white label application that eventually may have many clients. Think of in this use case, if you can issue KYC credential to one of your customers, then all the same user can present that credential to all different customers, because you issued that credential. That credential is still valid. So this is just think in terms of Steam and different games. If Steam issues a credential, a KYC credential, then that credential can be accepted in any game. And if the game requires KYC, then you save the user from that flow because you have a higher level credential. So you are simplifying your user's life.
Okay, hold on. That was great. Thank you. Sorry, I got distracted with the next question. But no, that was great. Thank you. I completely forgot what I was going to say. Let's go to the next question, then I'll come back.
Sure.
How does a user know where to retrieve the required VCs?
How does the user know where? Okay. I am assuming that this is when you are issuing a credential. As the issuer or authority, like in the demo that I presented, you must send. So this is part of the flow. I can issue a credential, but if the user does not accept it and puts it on their wallet, so the user doesn't have it. So I must offer the user some way to initiate the flow. Usually you will send an email to the user, or you will present it in the screen. Hey, do you want to accept this credential? That's one of the options that I think that are feasible. But you must offer something to the user somehow.
Nice, thank you. And I remember what I was going to say. I wanted to speak to how essentially there's this trust layer that we need to work on, or this trust system that we need to work on when it comes to verifiable credentials. And I just find that to be one of the most fascinating parts of all this. How are we going to create that system? So yeah, thank you for speaking a little more to that.
Yes, an important point of that is because verifiable credentials uses DID as the let's say, of the ID of anyone, either the user and the authority, depending on the type of deed that you are using, you don't need like a direct trust relationship. Like in this case, I'm using just plain short deed. That's not that decentralized. But if I would be using something more like Ion or Bitcoin or Ethereum as the anchoring mechanism, then verifiers don't need to request anything from the issuer. They can just go ahead, read the deed document from the blockchain, for example, or whatever decentralized anchoring mechanism you're using. And then this whole piece goes away. You don't need it. Right? And eventually, if you put your deed on a blockchain or a decentralized ledger, then even if I go away, okay, the verifiable credential may not be valid anymore, but I can't refuse having issued that credential. If that makes sense.
Yes, no, that makes sense. We actually have one more. And I didn't know if this was like a secret or anything, so I didn't comment on it. But we are working on an alternative way to issue VCs using a pure Web5 DW1 protocol. We have a common problem of needing a registry of VC providers that users can use to discover available issuers. And then it would be really neat to like sync up on this problem with you. So maybe we can like talk a little bit more about that in Discord, and we can link up on that. So we're coming close to the end of the hour. I'm going to remove your screen. Thank you so much for doing this. And again, you were a little nervous at first, but this was amazing. Like, you're so good at explaining things. So I really hope it was valuable for the audience. It was valuable for me. I really appreciate you taking the time and spending it with me. Let's do a fun question before we say bye. And audience, this is for you too. Okay. If you could be an object, what object would you be and why? This is like a little bit of a thinker.
Okay.
Go.
Does it have to be related to this stuff that we have been talking about?
It could be anything. Anything. Yeah.
I will be a watch, a wristwatch.
Why?
Yes. Because I love them. I think that there is a piece of engineering inside them that is awesome. It must be an analogic one, not a digital one.
Old school one. I like that. I like that answer. It's funny because I asked this question, but I don't actually have an answer for it. Okay, let me think. Okay, I would want to be. Oh, wait. Let's get the audience question. Okay, response. I mean, a monster truck so I can run free in the dirt. I love that one. That's a good one. Okay, let me see. What would I want to be? Maybe like a diary, so I can like hear everybody's stories. You know what I mean? Like just tell me all the juicy secrets of what's going on, or like the next amazing like business plan or something. Like I'd want to hear about things like that. Thank you so much again. Thank you so much, audience. And at the bottom again, it's his GitHub. He's also in our Discord. So if you have any follow-up questions that you weren't able to ask today, or when you tune in later, feel free to ask them there. Any last words, Facundo? Thank you again.
No, it was a pleasure. It was really amazing. I learned a lot building this.
I love that.
So it was amazing. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. And thank you, audience, for asking good questions, for being tuned in. All right, bye. See you guys next time. And let me find the ending.